Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I am Sean Anderson, Most Valuable Podcast, and the upcoming segment is from our full Fast Break podcast that we recorded. And if you do want to check out that full podcast, head over to Blog Talk Radio/The Fast Break. You'll be able to find the full podcast over there.
This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And this one's going to be a special one. Ricky and Mark did this on the onside kick, and we're going to take it over on the Fast Break because we're filthy copycats. We are going to do a mock draft 1 through 30 on this podcast. So we're going to go through 1 through 30 of the NBA mock draft. Usually I do these on our website, but we're going to do it strictly on the podcast. Right now, in the link below, you can see our picks if you're on YouTube, and I think on Blog Talk it'll be you can find it as well in the description. But pretty much what we're gonna do is we're gonna go 1 through 10. That's gonna be one segment on YouTube. 11 through 20. That's gonna be one segment on YouTube, and then 21 through 30. That's gonna be one segment on YouTube. And if you're on Blog Talk Radio, it's the whole thing. If you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, thank you so much for downloading us. If you're on YouTube, what's up? How's it going? So, first off, boys, we're going to get into the mock draft. You know, usually this is my thing, but I guess I'm being gracious.
You're just sharing it with us.
I'm being gracious, and I'm letting you open. So this is, Dave, we're popping your cherry. This is your first mock draft.
I don't think it is.
I think it is.
On the fast, on the Fast Break.
Maybe on the Fast Break.
On the Fast Break,
I've been doing these for years.
I don't think you've ever done an actual NFL mock draft either.
I've been doing this for like 4 years, man.
Okay.
But
I think somewhere in there I might have done it.
On the podcast.
On the podcast.
On Most Valuable Podcast.
Maybe you're right.
We're popping your cherry.
Maybe you're right.
And Ricky, you're usually NFL stuff.
Yeah.
So we're doing NBA mock drafts. First off, first pick, Boston. They got it from New York. I was gonna say New Jersey, Brooklyn. Jesus Christ, I'm still in Jason Kidd days. Boston's the number one pick. They got it from Brooklyn. Who is your number one pick, Ricky?
I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to go with Lonzo Ball. And the reason being is this is a pick where if you say Markelle Fultz or you say Lonzo Ball, I feel like you can justify either one. I mean, Markelle Fultz is basically... I think if you go Fultz, we're thinking Isaiah Thomas is going to walk. But in fact, I look at it, we already got Isaiah Thomas, you already got Marcus Smart. At the shooting guard position is where I would put Lonzo, and having him and Bradley at that 2 with Isaiah and Smart at that 1. I think Ball might be the better fit for Boston, although you could go at Fultz too.
I mean, I just disagree there just because I don't see Lonzo as a shooting guard. His best ability is his passing and his distribution of being a leader. So I don't know about that, but I mean, I agree that, talent-wise, Lonzo and Markelle could be seen as even, Dave, but Lonzo Ball is one of your most overrated prospects, so I'm thinking you're not going Lonzo Ball number 1.
I'm definitely going with Markelle Fultz here. I think he is the star of the draft. I think he is just uber talented. He got to show it off in college. It's a shame he didn't have a team around him. But you know what? He's going to fit really nicely in Boston, and I think he comes in the league, and he's one of the instant impact guys.
Yeah, I mean, Markelle Fultz has been my number one pick since the first mock draft. He's going to stay there. I just think he's super well-rounded, and he's going to fit well into Boston. Obviously didn't have the team around him. Obviously didn't have the success like Lonzo Ball did or Josh Jackson did.
But he's just got that knack
the
for
tournament.
getting to the hoop.
But he's a great scorer, great facilitator, can rebound. His defense is a little lackluster, but that's the biggest thing. And, I mean, you look at Isaiah Thomas right now, and Isaiah Thomas isn't the best defender, and Boston's been able to hide it a little bit. So, I mean, they're going to be used to similar players. I mean, obviously Markelle's much bigger than Isaiah Thomas, can do a lot more at least physically. So, I'll go with Markelle Fultz there. I think he's the best player in this draft in my mind. I think easily number 2 though. When we move on to the second pick, that's Phoenix's pick, and this is before the lottery has happened. So right now they have the second best chances to get the number 1 pick to win the lottery. But Phoenix sitting at 2 right now before the lottery. I think the second best player overall is Josh Jackson, and I have the Phoenix Suns taking Josh Jackson at number 2. Ricky, who do you have?
Well, this is a pick where even beforehand, when we were kind of talking about before we hit the record button, I was like, you know what? If I'm going with best talent, I'm going Fultz and I'm going Ball. They're at kind of 1A, 1B. You can put them however you want. But I look at the Suns and I go, even with Ball off my board, I can't go with Fultz. I can't even go with a Ball because looking at the point guard position, there's so many point guards there that why would they add a 4th to it? They got Bledsoe, Knight, and Ulis already. Why would you add a 4th in either Ball or Fultz? So that's why I think Justin Jackson might be
Josh
the pseudo. Yeah, Josh Jackson might be the pseudo number 2 pick, just because they could use a small forward more so than a point guard.
Yeah, I think the problem with Phoenix, and it's not even a problem, it's just they so many guards. You mentioned it. They're 3 deep already, possibly 4, depends on how much you like people. But the biggest problem there is just, what does this team need to do to take that next step? And I feel like Josh Jackson helps round out this roster so nicely. You have great athleticism. You have, between him and Marquise Chris out there, I think that is a wonderful, you have a young combo. And then at the guard position, you're already loaded. So I even see them possibly moving one of their guards, even without taking a guard right off the top in this draft.
Yeah, I think the most obvious guard to be moved is probably Brandon Knight to be moved. I mean, there's obviously talks about him middle of the season of him being moved. So Brandon Knight, I mean, I agree though. I mean, you look at the small forward position. I like T.J. Warren a lot, but he can be a guy that's a 6th man or a guy who's scoring off the bench.
Josh Jackson's upside is just so high, though. I mean, he's just such a fantastic all-around player.
He might be the best defender in this draft. I mean, he's unreal on both sides of the ball.
Well, and I mean, the thing that, going back to what I was kind of saying, like for my mock draft, it's a little different because obviously I have Fultz still on the board. You guys have Ball. If Ball's still on the board at 2, I think out of the 2 guards, he might be the one where you're more inclined, if you're Phoenix, to say, let's think about it, because like you mentioned, with Ball and his assist ability, would you be able to draft him, have him and Bledsoe, and then you can maybe move a Knight and have Ulis there also, and kind of just put Ball in there over a Josh Jackson? That's a kind of conversation I think that would happen, but I would, again, go Jackson because of the need is more there.
I mean, really, I think Ball would fit weirdly with Phoenix because, I mean, I think Bledsoe would be coming off the bench if you draft him, because you'd have Ball there, unless you move Devin Booker to the small forward position. I mean, that's really the way I could see that to work.
That would not work out well,
but that's what I'm saying is if you draft a point guard and you want to start that point guard, if you're going to draft a guy like Lonzo Ball, you're going to have to probably play him at the 2 because Bledsoe's small, but Lonzo Ball doesn't fit at the 2. So I think the best fit, at least for point guard wise, if Fultz and Ball are still on the board for some reason, for Phoenix, I think Fultz would be the best fit there, because at least he's a better scorer than Lonzo Ball, can do pretty much everything, at least scoring wise, get to the hoop and shoot from deep. So I think the better fit there, at least from a guard perspective from Phoenix, would be Fultz. I think Fultz is probably the best guard in this position, in this draft, because he has a more well-rounded game, where Lonzo Ball, yes, he's a great shooter from deep, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, and Lonzo Ball versus Fultz 1 and Lonzo Ball versus Fultz 2. But it's something where Lonzo has a great ability to be a leader and a great ability to be a passer, and his size is something that we really haven't seen on a point guard in a long time. I mean, maybe Michael Carter-Williams, but I don't think that's a comparison Lonzo Ball wants.
No.
I mean, it's something where I think Josh Jackson fits too well, because you have Bender when he finally is healthy and comes to full form. Chris would be in the lineup as well. You could play those guys at power forward or center. Then at small forward, you'd have Josh Jackson. Coming off the bench would be T.J. Warren. Shooting guard would be Devin Booker, and then point guard would be Bledsoe or Ulis. And I think that fits perfectly for their lineup.
I think the biggest thing is, like, look, you got to admit, even if like Ball were there, I don't think I would take him, Ricky, and that's because Phoenix right now needs a defensive stopper. Like they already scored, they're like top 10 in points per game already. Scoring's not their problem. They let everybody go past them. They're a fucking turnstile on defense. So getting someone like Josh Jackson to really help stabilize that. We saw a little bit of Marquise Chris get a whole. Well, he improved a lot over the whole year.
He's a good rim protector.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
his
think that
athleticism
adding Josh Jackson is just get yourself a shutdown small forward who can take on other teams' best players and just see how valuable that'll be for this team. I think that's that move will get them out of the top of the NBA draft.
Yeah, and that's why. I mean, you can see it. We all have Josh Jackson. I also bring it up because I know in a past video we've had that comment where it's like, man, could you imagine Ball and Devin Booker? And that's why I bring it up right here.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to number 3. Los Angeles Lakers picking here according to draft odds or whatever.
Hopefully they don't lose their pick.
They could lose their picks to Philadelphia if they fall out of the top 3. Looking at this though, Ricky, we'll go to you. Obviously, you have Lonzo Ball going number 1. So is Fultz going 3 here to the Lakers? It's
got to be basically whichever, unless Phoenix goes with a point guard, the guards are going to be going to Boston and LA. And in this case, because Ball went number 1 in mine, it's got to be Fultz. And I mean, it would be a nice fit because you move Russell now with the shooting guard. I mean, Jordan Clarkson can now move back and be your backup
Or
point
trade
guard. I don't know. I'd have him as a 6-man right now.
You could trade him, though.
You could
He's
trade
got
him.
a lot of value.
He's
But
got
I
value,
mean,
yeah.
I would like having him off the bench and having
definitely.
Fultz as your starting point guard.
Yeah, no, I think that Ball is like a perfect fit though for the Lakers where they're at. It's a hometown pickup for them. He doesn't have to go far. His dad's already endorsed the team. He's already endorsed the team. It's one of those things where it's just like this seems like it's just perfectly lined up for them in our mock. And I think the best thing about this is you get an unselfish player in Ball, and I'm not saying there's some egos in LA, but he's gonna do well moving the ball around, making sure everybody's happy, and getting that offense really moving well. Because I think like Lou Walton has an idea of what he wants to do with this team, and Lonzo Ball is going to fit in really nicely because we saw it in college when Lonzo Ball starts moving that ball around, he creates better opportunities for people around him, and he can also still stroke the three.
Yeah, and I know you're not high on Julius Randle, but you look at least what he was working with in UCLA. I mean, Lonzo Ball was the focal point of that offense. He was dealing with a guy in Alford who can shoot and at least be a scorer. I know he wasn't their best scorer.
Right.
We were getting an upgrade pretty much there in D'Angelo Russell because that kid can score. You look at that small forward position, Brandon Ingram, who's still a developing talent.
He's raw.
And once he hits that talent, and maybe having a guy like Lonzo Ball who can really facilitate and open up shots, that might get his shot falling, might give him some confidence. You look at that power forward position, a guy that's very athletic in Julius Randle, who I like, and you kind of compare that to a TJ Leaf, very athletic, a guy who's not the biggest guy, but a guy who can really jump up, get there, move around is pretty quick. And then you look at inside, and they really like Zubac, and I thought he was a really nice pickup late in the draft last year. So I look at this team and the Lakers, I think that really fits their mold because they need a leader on that team. Boston doesn't really need a leader on their side, and I don't know if Fultz has that leadership. I think we talked about this in the Fultz versus Ball conversation here, is that Lonzo Ball is more of a leader. We've seen his ability to lead. We've seen his ability to elevate a team because pretty much the same team, obviously they added TJ Leaf, but that UCLA team went from a team that was like 500 before Lonzo Ball came, and then that was now a top 10 team in this year. So Lonzo Ball really made a change there in UCLA, and I think that he could bring a change to Los Angeles. And I think that right now, the top three prospects are pretty much set in stone. You got Ball, you got Fultz, you got Jackson. Obviously, Dave and I agree in the order. You're saying Ball's going number one.
They're still, though, depending on the order, they're still the best three prospects, and they're going to be the top three picks no matter what order.
And now I think this is where it kind of gets a little bit crazy. Number 4, Philadelphia. Obviously, they can get Los Angeles' pick if they fall out of the top three. But looking at this, Philadelphia sitting at number 4. I'll go first because I have a little more explaining to do before all this happens. I think Philadelphia is a prime candidate to trade down. I look at Sacramento. Maybe they really like a guard, and maybe they really like a guy like De'Aaron Fox and don't want them to get and take it from under the rug here. I look at Philadelphia. I think the player that fits best for them is Malik Monk, but I don't think he is for sure the 4th best player in this draft. So I can see them trying to get a trade and moving down. Maybe a team like Minnesota really wants a Jonathan Isaac or really wants a Lauri Markkanen. Maybe they try to trade up. I think that Philadelphia is a prime candidate to trade down. If they don't, I think it's Malik Monk, but I think they want to go Malik Monk because you look at Ben Simmons' ability to pass, you look at Joel Embiid's ability to stretch the floor. They need shooting. They need guys who can score. Malik Monk can be that guy, and we obviously he is a guy that kind of struggled, can get really cold at some points, but when he's on, he's on, and
he's
Malik Monk can be
Klay
dangerous.
Thompson hot. I mean, it's crazy.
I mean, so ultimately, I think Malik Monk is a perfect fit for Philadelphia, but I don't know if 4 is the right spot for him.
Yeah, and that's why with me, I'm going with the other Kentucky guy. I'm going with De'Aaron Fox because there's one of those things where I look at their depth chart right now, and of course, you're thinking, well, Ricky, when Ben Simmons comes back, he's going to kind of be that pseudo Giannis for this team. He's going to be the guy who, on offense, the ball runs through Ben Simmons, even though he's not going to be playing the point guard. But I kind of think of it, and I first look at point guard and I go, TJ McConnell looked good. I know when me and Dave saw the Sixers at the UC, McConnell looked good out there.
He's a good 6-man.
But is TJ, yeah, exactly. Is he your starter? No, he's not. Go out there, get a De'Aaron Fox. And it's one of those things where you can see it as, maybe when Ben Simmons isn't on the court, because he's not going to play 40 minutes a game each and every game.
Unless he's coached by Thibodeau, no.
Unless he's coached by Thibodeau. Then you can have Fox out there to kind of run the ball or have the ball in his hands when Ben isn't out there.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I'm still leaning Monk heavily because of the outside scoring and just the volume scoring. I think De'Aaron Fox, what he would give them is another ball handler, but the problem is that the lane in the paint is so clogged up already.
And he can't shoot.
And his outside shot is shaky. I mean, you can learn to shoot. You can improve your shooting to an extent, but...
But you're teaching two kids to shoot then. Because Ben Simmons can't shoot and De'Aaron Fox can't shoot.
Exactly. And you've already got Dario Embiid inside. Like, I just feel like you're clogging up the paint too much, and you're going to have a problem because you can't stretch out the floor well. You're going to get some bad turnovers down low. It's just, for me, Monk stretches the floor, helps... You start to see this picture of their starting five come together really nicely, and I think that... Again, you mentioned it. When he's hot, he's hot. I mean, just let him go.
And that's the thing where Ben Simmons is a guy who can. We've seen his ability to create plays, and if he's able to create plays, and Joel Embiid's taking players away from the floor, Malik Monk might be left open. He might get some open shots. You swing that ball around, and you see, Embiid's got a decent. I mean, he's not a great passer, but I mean, he can at least fire a ball over Malik Monk, who's open. I feel like Monk can get some shots, and Monk, who is such a great shooter, it doesn't matter if he's hot or cold, he's going to hit a wide open three. So. I think Malik Monk is the best fit for Philadelphia. I think De'Aaron Fox is a better value at that spot, but looking at that team, that's why I think they'll trade down because you might be able to get more value, get more picks. Because De'Aaron Fox, I don't think fits that lineup at all. I think value-wise, I think that's a great pick for Philadelphia because I think De'Aaron Fox is the 4th or 5th best player here. I think Monk's more of like a 7th or 8th best player.
Yeah.
But again, fitting a team, I think Malik Monk is the best fit for Philadelphia. Let's move on to Orlando, a team we've talked about, a team that needs their superstar. Ricky, who's that superstar that you're looking at that Orlando will draft?
To me,
number
this
5?
is the easiest pick. I mean, when we talked about Orlando before on the podcast, we talked about Jason Tatum. And I mean, I look at their 11 starter lineup, and what's the one position they don't have is a small forward. I mean,
they have them.
They
just don't know how
players
to
who
use
play
them.
that same position.
Yeah.
They have players who are technically small forwards, but who I would not want playing there. I mean, we talked about the whole Alfred Payton point guard thing, and they could go with point guard, but I think you can trust in Payton. You have Fournier, you have Gordon, you have Vucevic, who, again, Draymond for Vucevic straight up. But the small forward is the gaping hole here for me, and I mean, Tatum's the one you got to go with.
Yeah, JT is just, he's too good to be.
Did you call him JT?
I did. I'm going to try and make that one stick. JT's just too good to pass up right here.
D-Rod?
And look, I think the biggest thing about this is when your choice is either, in mine, it would be down to Jason Tatum or De'Aaron Fox. I see De'Aaron Fox is too close to their current situation at point guard. It doesn't make sense for them to go. I know he's respectively better on defense.
Respectively better on defense, more athletic, quicker. He's the quickest player in this draft. Alfred Payton's not that quick.
So,
but again, the similarities, they can't shoot and they got big hair.
Yeah. There we go. You can talk as much as you want about that. But I think Alfred Payton, we saw him get better as the season went on. Like, he was straight hot garbage to start the season. To end, he actually finished on a decent run. So I have some confidence in him moving forward. I think that Jason Tatum gives them a score. He's got confidence, and he knows when he can hit his shots, and he knows when to facilitate other players. He gives them a different look on that offense that they desperately need, because they can't score.
No.
They just can't score.
No, they can't score. And the thing that I have going, the reason I haven't gone with De'Aaron Fox is like the conversation we had with that they need a superstar. And there's talks about them going out and they get, was it Dan Gilbert? Or not Dan Gilbert, because he's the owner. David Griffin. From the Cavs, and he's a guy that I don't know if he's the best at building a team because you look at what he's been doing. I mean, he had LeBron, and then he got a really shitty team when LeBron left, and he had Kyrie fall into his hands.
He's really good
Anthony
at getting
Bennett.
the number 1 pick, though, which
could
help them.
But if he signed before the draft, he's got sitting at number 5. I don't know what he can do with the number 5 pick. I think the last one he was like what? Was it who's the big guy on Cleveland? Thompson.
Oh, Tristan Thompson.
He was a 4th pick, and
Deion Waiters was 3.
Deion Waiters was there as well. So, I mean, I don't know about his exact drafting skills. I don't want to get into the Orlando Magic here, but they need a superstar. I think the kid with the most superstar potential here is De'Aaron Fox. You look at his quickness, you look at his ability to attack the rim, you look at his ability to pass. I think it's something that it's too hard to pass up. I understand that Peyton's very valuable, and that he did have a great end of the season, but you can move that value. And I think De'Aaron Fox is a much better value, a much better player than Alfred Payton. He's a younger player. I think that he can really take this team to the next level because, yes, Vucevic is a great scorer, but he hasn't been able to really show that recently. You look at Fournier, he's a good shooter. They have Hezonja, he's a good shooter. And then you look at Aaron Gordon, that guy's so athletic that maybe pick and rolls with them
he's
could
still
be
in that
really fun.
old Griffin model, right?
Yeah, I think that this team could be somewhere if they had a star. And I think that going out and getting a guy like De'Aaron Fox, a guy that I think has the most star potential out of the players left, I think that you look at De'Aaron Fox, it's something that you can't pass up because, yes, you have Peyton. Yes, you have, 10 other starters or whatever the running joke is here on the Fast Break podcast. But you need a person with star power. You've been built off teams, at least in the Orlando Magic history, with Hardaway, O'Neal, T-Mac, and Dwight Howard. You need that star. I think De'Aaron Fox can be that next star for Orlando. So that's why I got Orlando going with De'Aaron Fox, because Elfrid Payton could always be moved. I don't think Elfrid Payton's jerseys are flying off the shelves here, but I think De'Aaron Fox can sell some jerseys. I think De'Aaron Fox can cut up some highlight reels. But looking at this, I think De'Aaron Fox is the best fit. I think he's the most explosive player, and I think that he's a guy that has a ton of star potential. So De'Aaron Fox is my pick at number 5 for Orlando. Going to number 6, Minnesota. You guys were all different here. You guys got 2 guards here, and I got a forward. So Dave, why don't you explain your pick first?
So I have De'Aaron Fox actually fallen down to Minnesota. I think that Thibodeau loves his defensive players. De'Aaron Fox showed that he can go one-on-one with anybody, and just his quickness, his peskiness, he is all over the ball. He's all over the player. I mean, it might get him into some foul trouble early on in his career, but I think that that's something that he will just thrive in Minnesota. And you just have to admit, like last year, you went guard early. You went for the best player to fit you with Chris Dunn, but maybe it didn't succeed right away. So you go another guard here, and that way, if and when you're ready to move on at point guard, I know everybody loves Ricky Rubio.
Everyone in Minnesota did.
Everyone does.
It was a start of last year.
But this gives you like the perfect protection, because you have someone in De'Aaron Fox who can go one-on-one, defend anyone. He can get that first step and beat anyone off the ball. And I love his fit with this Minnesota team.
The only problem is that he can't shoot, and the biggest problem with Ricky Rubio is that he can't shoot.
But now you're pairing him with a team with, when healthy, some really fantastic offensive weapons.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not.
He doesn't have to. Is the point?
I really like that pick.
Yeah,
I do. I like that pick. I like the fit for De'Aaron Fox. I'm just saying, you're getting rid of a guy who can't shoot for a guy who can't shoot.
But for a guy who plays better defense and who's quicker,
he's a better player. Yeah. I'm not saying he's not, Dave. I really like the pick. He's not
I'll
on my
stop
board.
defending against nothing.
He's not on my board for a reason. I just like playing devil's advocate.
And that's the thing. Like, you're in the same boat as me, Sean. The only reason why De'Aaron Fox isn't at this pick for me is because he's already gone. He's not on the board anymore. And I mean, I look at it, and to me, this was one of this, and I think Dallas to me were the 2 hardest picks to make in this top 10. Because Minnesota, I look at, and you can go point guard, because I don't think like Ricky Rubio's not the answer. Chris Dunn, you would like to be the answer, but we were way too high on him coming out of the draft. And Tyus Jones is nothing to write home about at the starting position. And that's why I look at it and I go, they have their small forward position in Wiggins. They have Cat at the power forward. They have Dieng down low. The one position that, yes, they have Levine at the shooting guard, but not much after him. Go at Malik Monk, add that stretch the floor, that shooting that Dave talked about when we were talking about the Sixers.
Dieng is safe for you? He sucks.
Well, there's no center that you're going to take at 5th overall.
Yeah, there is, and he's not a center. He's going to be a power forward. You move Cat to the center. It's Jonathan Isaac.
Okay.
This guy is Thibodeau's model. I mean, this is a guy who can play 3, 4, 5. He could probably defend the point guard. He could probably defend, Kevin McHale and Bill Walton at the same time. I mean, this guy's defensive ability is unreal. You see his also explosiveness on offense. I mean, that's something where he's very quick. He's very lengthy. Pairing him with Karl-Anthony Towns is just a nightmare. And we talk about Ricky Rubio. Yes, he can't shoot, but when he has got 4 players like Zach LaVine, who could be a scorer, Wiggins, who's a phenomenal scorer, Cat, who is one of the best young players in the NBA, and Jonathan Isaac, who he has a decent shot. He's not a guy that's going to kill you yet, but if you develop him, he can be a great offensive possession and offensive weapon. You look at Ricky Rubio, he's going to be able to set that up. If Ricky Rubio does anything great, it's his passing ability, is setting up teammates. So if you have 4 offensive weapons like that, Ricky Rubio's flaws are going to be hidden. And then if you also draft a guy defensively like Jonathan Isaac, where you can put Ricky Rubio on your worst guard, put Levine on, you can really move this around.
You've got options. Yeah, it's good to have options.
Because Jonathan Isaac gives you so much mobility. Because Dieng, he's slow and he's big and he's long and he's got long arms, but that's about it. And he's not a guy that's going to kill you offensively. He's not a guy who can kind of protect the rim.
He's not a lockdown defender.
Yeah, Cat has to step up his defense, and Cat's not the best defender. Jonathan Isaac.
None of the people on the Timberwolves outside of Ricky Rubio plays defense. So.
They need defensive help, and I think Jonathan Isaac is the perfect fit for them because I've seen Lauri Markkanen drafted to or mocked to the Timberwolves, and that just makes my shit.
They're going to have to average like 120 a game with that lineup.
Yeah,
there's no way they can.
And you're talking about a defensive defensive coach here who in Tibbs, who's not going to want to draft a guy like Mark, and I think Isaac's the best fit on this board.
And I mean, the only thing, like, I look at that, and Isaac would probably be, if Monk was off the board already, then Isaac would probably be the second player I go with. But like I said,
you just see too much value in Monk.
Yeah, it's just too much value there for a shooting guard position. The one thing that will change that, and I know this is before free agency, so that's why it is, but if Thibodeau is able to bring in a guy like Taj Gibson, then that'll change this pick. This is going to be the hardest pick, I think, in mocks all the way up until the draft, because there are so many things that could change it.
The only upside I see, I feel like it's tinfoil.
Because if you bring in Taj, because Thibodeau knows Taj knows he'll play defense, you're not going to go with a power forward.
Yeah, the upside is he can run Monk at the 2 and have Zach LaVine run the 1. I mean,
but
we know
Zach LaVine isn't a natural point guard. Monk's
he can play it though. He has played it before. He's fairly comfortable.
I would say
I like Ricky Rubio's passing ability better, but I'm just saying that's the only way I can see this happening.
I disagree with this is the hardest pick to mock, because I think it's completely obvious that this is the best fit,
defense.
that this is the best fit for not only the coach, the team that they need defensively. Jonathan Isaac is so versatile. I understand that they might bring in Taj, but I don't see why you also can't bring in Taj and bring in Jonathan Isaac, because Jonathan Isaac can also learn the toughness and grittiness from a guy like Taj Gibson. I think it just makes too much sense to take a guy like Jonathan Isaac here. I think Jonathan Isaac is a guy.
Say Jonathan Isaac like one more time.
Jonathan Isaac. I think a guy like Jonathan Isaac can really flourish under a guy like Tibbs, and I think it'd be a fantastic pick for Minnesota there. Going to number 7, this is a guy that probably people are saying this is a complete steal. This is a terrible pick for at least looking at my mock draft. New York Knicks taking Jason Tatum, because this is a guy that's a top 5 talent, and I know he is. And the reason why I don't have him in the top 5 is because he doesn't fit Philadelphia, because they have a small forward, they have a power forward, they have a center. They don't need another fucking forward. They need a guard. So that's why Jason Tatum's going to New York here. I think New York fans should be ecstatic by this pick, because yes, you have Carmelo, but Carmelo is pretty much halfway out the door, but he won't want to leave the door. His contract's coming up soon too. So Jason Tatum could be a nice replacement for once Carmelo leaves, and also learning under a guy like Carmelo would be nice for Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum, I see that New York might be a team that could flip with Philadelphia. So Philadelphia can take Monk later, but I think Jason Tatum is going to go 7 to New York. I think his slide's going to stop falling there.
That's a pretty bold prediction. I mean, I think that if he did land it, if he was available at 7, that would be a good pick for New York. Like you said, with Melo's situation, Phil Jackson's situation,
you'd have to take him.
But I'm sorry, this is a team that they need a guard. Like,
they don't need a guard; they need a point guard.
They need a point guard. And you know what? I'm going with the boldness of Phil here. We're going overseas again. We're going with Frank, and I think that him coming here, of course, you're going to get a shit ton of boos right off the bat from New York, because they did the same thing with Porzingis. But again, they're going to learn to like this guy. He's a long player who, at point guard, is going to give you awesome defense. He is a decent passer, and he can get to the hole when he needs to.
He's got a decent shot, too.
Yeah, I would say, like, I think across the board, like, Frank would be a great pick, and he fits that Euro thing, so you're keeping Porzingis happy, and you're kind of throwing a wild card in there.
Well, how are you throwing a wild card in there?
Because no one expects Frank to go this early. I think he's
no
like
one would expect the Knicks to take him.
He's a top 10 talent.
No one expect the Knicks to take him, and I'm going to go. I'm going to go with the other point guard, Dennis Smith, mainly because like Dave said, I'm not trying to get into the mind of Phil Jackson. I'm just looking at it from the two sides. Is if you want a guy who is athletic, can get to the hole, who can penetrate, you go with Smith. If you want the pure passing Euro style, you go with Frank. And I look at this team and I go, the pure pass would be nice, but I want a point guard who can get to the rim, who can score, and who can throw it down with authority when he needs to. And that's what I'm going to go with. A guy that of course, Derrick Rose isn't not the old Derrick Rose he used to be, but the Knicks, it kind of seemed, were hoping that they would get a little bit of that penetration from Rose when they traded for him.
And Dennis Smith, he's a guy that, obviously we've seen his ability, at least at NC State early on in the season, to be that player, but, his struggles at NC State in the latter half of the season. Yeah, once his coach was fired, was Gafford?
Yep.
Yeah. Once he was fired, they completely fell off, and NC State just looked terrible. Dennis Smith didn't look that great in the second half of the season. I think Frank might actually be the better fit there, because you look at Melo, you look at Kristaps. Yes, he's a great passer, but then again, he could develop into an offensive talent. Yes, he's not going to have that explosiveness like Dennis Smith, because Dennis Smith's explosiveness are pretty much second to none.
The one thing I just want to correct you is, like you say, you got Melo, you got Kristaps. Kristaps is the only opinion that matters because Melo's out the door.
Well, at least
in
for
my
1
opinion.
year. At least for 1 year.
If I'm the Knicks, I don't care what Melo thinks. I care what Kristaps thinks.
Right,
he's
but-
our
No,
future.
but I'm saying he's
Frank
still going
on
to be
that
on the team.
Yeah.
makes them better.
I'm not saying you're drafting him because of Melo or because Melo
Yeah.
wants it. I'm saying Melo was probably still going to be on the team, so he's still going to have to pass it to Carmelo. So that's all.
That's kind of the rule.
Yeah, I mean, at least for 1 year, Carmelo and Frank might be playing together. I think I could see Dennis Smith because he does have that superstar potential. And again, Frank is a guy that not a lot of people know.
Right.
Dennis Smith has been on mainstream, at least over here. I do think like Frank's size and length, especially comparing that with Kristaps.
Yeah.
But again, I could see New York at least going with Dennis Smith because of his name. But I think Tatum is the best mix of name and also ball handling abilities because he can be a guy that can develop into a point forward. Definitely not a point guard as he's 6'8". But he's a guy that, again, BPA, best player available. I could see New York even moving up, maybe possibly getting a guy like De'Aaron Fox. But ultimately, I think Jason Tatum's the pick for me. And I think either of the guards isn't wrong. I think if Tatum's off the board, then going with a guy like Dennis Smith or Nitik Kalina. I was practicing this before the podcast.
Frank.
Yep, it's just Frank.
Before the
going with
podcast. I think both of them could fit there. Let's move on to Sacramento. They got 2 picks, the 8th and 10th pick. This one, I think the 8th one is their own, and then the 10th one is from New Orleans. I have them going with Lauri Markkanen from Arizona. I think his length, his ability to stretch the floor compare very nicely with a guy like Willie Cauley-Stein. I know that Scal was looking great as well, but this is something where BPA, best player available. I know that they've been drafting a ton of guys at that forward and center position. But you look at Scal, you look at Willie Cauley-Stein, and then you also add Lauri's ability to stretch out from 3. I really like that adding on to Sacramento because you have Buddy Hield out there. I think they need a point guard desperately, but I think when you look at...
And I want to ask you about that because yours is different than mine and Dave's where you would already have Isaac off the board. And Markkanen would be the only power forward here. Is there a reason why you went with power forward first before one of those 2 guards? Because Dallas could take one of them. So if you're
Dallas could take one of them.
If you're Sacramento, why not take
Your
one of the
choice of
guards
guards?
first?
But then I think if you look at this, at least with Sacramento, it's a team that wants to stretch the floor, and also you look at Sacramento, it's a team that is run by guys that really. It's something that we've mentioned before. Vivek is a guy that
watches the tourney.
He watches the tourney,
Yeah.
and he'll recognize a guy like Lauri Markkanen, and I think also his abilities are still unreal. I mean, he's a guy that can shoot the 3 ball like nothing else. I mean, still shooting over 40%, and that's after you struggled.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that's crazy. I mean, and they also have great facilitators in Collison. Ty Lawson was a decent at least. They could always bring in a free agent point guard as well. Buddy Hield looked great. I think that adding that 3-point ability and stretching the floor with Markkanen is something that where Dallas could take him. I think Dallas isn't set on a guard. I think if Lauri is there, Dallas would take him. So I think they're more worried about Dallas taking Lauri and not getting him where they don't need the choice of the guards. They might not be sold on one of them. They'll just let them take
Flip
it.
of a coin.
Where Dallas might take Lauri. So I think that they'll make sure that they get their guy in Lauri Markkanen and then just wait on the point guard. So that's why I kind of ended up going with Lauri at 8. I think that both guards could fit in Sacramento. I don't think really they need the size. I think both guys aren't fantastic shooters. So if you at least want the 3 ball, you go with Lauri Markkanen.
And that's the one thing. That's the biggest thing I had when making this pick because Dave, it kind of seems like me and you were in the same boat.
Yep.
We already had one of the point guards go at number 7 to New York, and I sat there going, well, I want to give him a power forward, and then I want to give him a point guard at 10. And I went, well, with me, Frank's the guy that's on the board. Do I take Frank at 8? Like, is Dallas going to take that point guard? And like you said, because Markkanen would be there, I think that they might pass on the guard to go with Markkanen. And that's why Sacramento, I went with Jonathan Isaac.
Yeah.
Kind of the same reason why you went with him earlier from Minnesota. He could play the 4, he could play the 2, he could play the 3. You could put him anywhere you want.
You
Yeah.
can guard play the 2.
Really?
Can't exactly
Okay,
shoot like a
then
2.
we'll put him at the. You can put him at small forward. You can put him at power forward.
Defensively,
Whatever you
yeah.
want to do, and that alone makes it why I go power forward here for them and Isaac over Markkanen.
Yeah. I think Jonathan Isaac's a better fit than Markkanen, but Isaac's already off the board for me.
For me, it was just I love the defensive prowess of Isaac, and I love the fact that we're pretty much guaranteeing we're showed up at the 4 and the 5, or maybe the Yeah, really, it's the 4 and the 5 that were my major concerns. I think that Sacramento spent so many picks on that.
I think something that I like about Isaac going to the Sacramento Kings too is you can put him at the 3, then you could start scale, and then you can also start Cauley-Stein as well.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you such a lockdown defense that, I mean, that's going to create fits for every other team out there. And yes, they're going to need a guard, but I think for them, it's more of a flip of the coin. It's like, we'd like to have one or the other. I don't know that for Sacramento, one stands out much more than the other.
Yeah, I think this is where people should take note of where Miles Bridges would be going in my mock draft, because Miles Bridges would be going 8 to Sacramento right now because they need a small forward. And I think picking him here would be a great fit, because I don't think Markkanen is a guy that I'm completely sold on. I was sold on Bridges. And you look at Markkanen's ability to shoot threes, but he's also not that great down low. He's not that tough down low. Miles Bridges brings that NBA body. He's decent from the outside. He's good inside.
But he's going back to college.
He's going back to college. So I think Isaac's the better fit than Markkanen, but then again, Isaac's already off the board because he's a great fit for so many different teams. He's going higher.
Too versatile.
Going to Dallas, number 9. This one was easy to me because, I mean, Dallas is a team that obviously has picked international players before, has gone with international players before. I'm completely blanking on their old point guard's name from France. If you guys can help me out, that'd be awesome.
Not even a little.
I totally forgot. Back in 2009.
Because we're going back almost 10 years ago.
I'll Google it, but
JJ Barea?
Well, they had JJ Barea. They still have JJ Barea, but he was different. I'll look it up.
They had
but,
Darren Williams for a while too.
Yeah, he's not an international player. But Frank, looking at Frank the international flair. They have a ton of international scouts. I think that his size, his ability to pass, but then also go off the Nerlens pick and roll, the Dirk pick and pop situation they could have going. I think Frank is the best fit for the Dallas Mavericks here.
I mean, I could see that because you have Markkanen coming off the board. For Ricky and I who don't, I think it's very clear that you want Markkanen because you want to build up
Dirk's replacement.
That Dirk replacement role. And a guy who has shown such promise and such great shooting in college, he can come in and learn from one of the best big shooters in the NBA. And I think it's just like, it's picture perfect for him if it falls in place like that.
Are you talking about the rookie out of France, Rodriguez? Because I looked up the 2009 Mavericks roster. And
Who was it?
Their point guards were Jason Kidd, JJ Barea, and Rodriguez Buibas?
Yeah, it was him.
Baybouz or whatever. How
He was
say his
decent.
name?
He was decent.
France player. But the thing that, I mean, it's exactly what Dave said. I looked at this and I went, you know what? Markkanen's there. We've kind of already jokingly compared him to Dirk Nowitzki. Why not take him for Dallas?
Yeah.
It was that easy of a pick.
Yeah.
That was the easiest pick for me.
It was Rodriguez. Yeah, it was him.
Yeah, how would you say his last
Yeah,
name?
because he played for Dallas for 4 years. And he was decent. He had 2 seasons where it was like 8. Yeah, it was Rodriguez.
He's trying to sell us on some random.
Yeah, I know.
Bobois.
Jason Kidd and JJ Barea.
It was Rodriguez Bobois.
Sure.
Rodriguez
Okay.
Bobois. He was good.
Yeah,
he was good.
Yeah. We all remember him, Sean.
God damn it.
Yeah.
You guys remember Rodriguez Bobois.
No, I don't.
But yeah, Rodriguez Bobois, that's why I think Frank is going to go to Dallas, because
Sure.
they do have a ton of international scouts. I think that they're going to see his potential, and I think that Frank, well, he hasn't been playing against a level of competition like Dennis Smith, because Dennis Smith is still on my board right now. He does have that length. He does have an athleticism. I think pairing that with a guy like Nerlens, and also pairing that speed, with a slower player like Dirk, I think it could be really effective for their offense, especially Harrison Barnes. It's going to make it even a better situation for Harrison Barnes.
And this is the thing where it's interesting why we're doing this, because at this point it's one of those things where a lot of us have different guys that are off the board, where you have the 2 guards, and me and Dave have basically different point guards, but Markkanen and a guard to choose from.
The thing is that I do like how all the top 10 prospects are top 10 prospects.
Yeah.
We do
I think
not
we
have
pretty
anyone
well
else.
agreed on
yeah,
that.
No
Yeah.
one else is in here. So rounding out Sacramento, I haven't taken Dennis Smith. They need a guard. Dennis Smith is the best guard available. It's pretty as simple as that. I mean, there's
the
not a
drop
lot.
off after him is insane.
Exactly.
So you have to take Dennis Smith here, and I think that he will fit their system really well. Again, you mentioned he's an intense player. He's very explosive, and he will help them offensively dramatically. And if you can get him right again, defensively, he's not a negative. So it's a nearly perfect fit for them, because in mine, they end up, and everybody's, I think they end up with a new power forward or a small forward and then a guard. And like this rounds out this team, and a team that we were joking around being like, just absolutely awful picks year after year. And we're like, how are they even going to win games? And now we start to see like a glimpse of a roster. Like, he's not so crazy after all.
Yeah, and then of course we have the Buddy Hield. Is Buddy Hield the next centerpiece
Well,
of
and
Sacramento
hey,
Kings? People are like, well,
I
they
mean,
didn't say Devin Booker was a
Where's
centerpiece.
Papa John's in all this?
That's why, for me...
Forgot about him. That's the guy I was thinking of. I was like, I know
John's?
they have one more player. I was going to say it's
Yep.
Kufos, but yeah, it's Papagiannis.
But I mean, that's why for me, I mean, since Dennis is off the board, Frank's the guy I go with. And the two things from the scouting report I like most for him for the Kings is leadership qualities, because this team needs a leader, unless you think Buddy Hield is going to be the leader. And then also, we already talked about his passing ability. All he's got to do is get the ball to Buddy Hield. Just find it open.
He's a
Buddy
decent
Hield,
scorer himself.
He can score himself, but the guy who I look and it says needs to improve the jump shot, no, you don't. Just pass it to Buddy Hield.
Yeah, but then also you have Lauri Markkanen in my draft, or you also have Jonathan Isaac, who's got a decent stroke. You also have Willie Cauley-Stein, who's good around the rim, and I mean that's about it scoring wise. I mean, they have
Frank's
they
gonna
have Scal, they
Frank's
have-
gonna find all.
They
of
have
them.
Malachi Richardson, who was banged up.
Yeah,
but
we'll need to see him actually get some play time.
Hashtag dropping dimes. That's what he's gonna be
I
doing.
hate you sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Oh, shit. Oh, it's just one of our videos scared me a little bit. Don't forget to check out that one. And also don't forget to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.